This is my craft room, and I want to hang these pegboards so that I can hang some of my looms. That's not all of them, but that's probably the ones I use the most. And you have a couple of challenges when hanging pegboard. You have to have studs, or you have to use drywall anchors. So actually I have a stud finder, but I also know that anywhere there's a window frame like there, or there is a door frame, there will be studs there. And I already checked this wall and there's actually a stud in the middle. We have to build a frame before we hang this pegboard. So if I were to cut off my board, it's got to come off about 4 inches from this, if I cut it off this side. So it'll fit on this wall like this, these two together. That looks like it will work. For those of you who may not be experienced DIYers, I will kind of go through what I'm doing. So this is called a 1x2. It's a 1x2 inch board. You can get them at any of your hardware stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever's near you. I happen to have a whole bunch because we were having a deck rebuilt. So I went out to the garage and I cut the pieces that I need. You will also need a level so that you'll make sure all your stuff is level. And I am going to use screws. You could also nail it in, but I can tell you from experience, nails, it's very hard to put nails into 2 pieces of wood. So screws are going to be your better option. Okay, so I had these screws in my garage, and I have a 1,000,001 types of wood screws and deck screws. It looks like they are a 1.5 inch screw, so you can measure them. So these have really sharp tips. They're either wood screws or deck screws will work. And what you want to make sure of when you're deciding how long they need to be is you need to put it on the very top of your piece of wood and make sure you have plenty to go into the next piece of wood. So I'm going to put them in the studs in the wall. So I need to make sure it'll go through this piece of wood and another piece of wood. So I cut 2 of these. One's going to go at the bottom and one will go up at the top. I cut 3 of these because you want one in the middle, because the pegboard is flexible, so you don't want it to sag or flex. So I cut 3 48 inches. So I'm going to put 1, 2, and 3. Hang the frame on the wall first. So I know there are studs next to this frame here. I already got my stud finder, but there's always a stud next to your any kind of a door frame, door facing, or a window. So I will put this directly up against this, and I'm going to screw this into the wall. All right, so one of the most important things you need to do when you are putting screws into wood is drill what's called a pilot hole. So if you're not experienced at doing this, you want to take a drill bit that is just a little smaller than your screw. Okay, and I chose that one, and I drilled a hole, and when I go to test that, that's just about right. So that should go in really well. And the reason why you drill pilot holes is for 2 reasons. One, it keeps really thin, small wood like this from splitting when you put the screw in. It also makes it easier to install the screws. So I'm going to drill a few pilot holes where I think I want them in the boards for hanging them on the wall. So I put up my first frame piece over here next to my door facing. And I know there's a stud here because there always is. But if you have a stud finder, which I happen to have, you can use your stud finder. And then see, it'll tell you when you hit a stud and then how far over it goes. There's also an old-fashioned way you can use a hammer. If you don't have a stud finder, hear how the sound changes? So that's just drywall. Hear that over there? That's got a stud underneath it. Okay, so what I did next was I put my top piece across here, and I put my level on it to make sure it was level. Okay, and then I made a mark on the wall with my pencil so I would know where this piece would need to go at the top. And now I'm going to put this piece on the top of those 2. pegboard is currently 48 inches and I want it to be 42. So to ensure that I get a straight cut with my circular saw, I'm going to mark it ever so often, and then I'm going to get a straight edge and I will run a line connecting all these dots. I'm getting ready to make my cut. I drew my line, and when using power tools, always use safety equipment, safety glasses and some sort of hearing protection, always. Okay, so I cut my pegboards down to the length or width I need them to be, and this time I'm going to use a much smaller screw to put the pegboard, mount the pegboard to the frame. You want to make sure that the screw heads are not smaller than the pegboard holes. So for these, I don't need them to go in that far, so that's why they can be smaller, okay, because I only need it to go into that piece of wood, so it doesn't need to go a long way into the wall, just into this piece of wood. So I was holding the pegboard up to see what I thought about just having the two sections of frame, and I decided to add one in the middle. There is a stud on my wall in here, so this is screwed into a stud. If you do not have a stud, do not put one of these up, okay? You could maybe put one in if you use sheetrock anchor bolts or anchor screws, but otherwise you want to make sure they're screwed into studs. This is much easier to do with two people once you get the frame up. This is easy to do with one person, but putting the pegboard up, I think, is going to take two people at this point. Okay, so I finished putting the frame. I think the last time I showed this to you, I had the one at the top and that went across, and then the three in the middle, and I put the one at the bottom, and then I just screwed the pegboard in along the sides, and then in the center, and then I put two screws on the side over here. It's a little bit, it's got dust on it. So you won't have the ability right here in the middle or on the edges to hang your peg hangers, but that's okay. I bought quite a few of these. These are called single peg hooks. They're less than $1. They're 95 cents at Home Depot. I bought several that were I really didn't know how long I needed them. These are 6 inches, and I bought a couple that were 8 inches because I really didn't know how long they needed to be to hold my looms. So let's see. Okay, so now I have all my looms hung up on my board. I hang mine by gauge, so 3/4 inch, 3/4 inch, KB, all 3/8 of an inch, the way those are set up, 5/8 of an inch, 1/2 inch. There's the Afghan loom, and then here I have the all-in-one knitting board, and then I have a odd Cindy wood 1/2 inch gauge rake, and then these are all of these are 3/4 inch. So there you have it. There is my neat craft room. Now I have more space in that cabinet to put my yarn. This is my final pegboard, and I probably should have put it even with the window frame. You can see it sits down a little bit, but I'm not very tall, and this is about as high as I can reach. So if I put it way up there, I really wouldn't be able to reach it. And since my door trim is white, I'm going to leave it white. You do have the option of painting these boards. And I wanted to show you one other thing. As far as I bought these neat little mesh baskets from Home Depot. However, so look what happens. So this is a 1/4 inch pegboard, meaning these holes are 1/4 in diameter. These are a lot smaller, these little pegs for this. But see how they aren't 90 degrees? Well, because they're not 90 degrees, they are not going to sit flush. So it's tilted up. Well, that's kind of silly and not very useful. So I did a workaround. So on this bigger one, these are small. These pegs are not the size, these hook pegs are not the right size for this board. However, I have a pegboard in my garage that's much smaller. I think it's a 1/8. And these fit that one, and I just had them down there, and I wanted to see if this would work. So I took a pair of pliers, and I just bent those other ones, and they snapped right off. So then I used these, and now I can hang this basket, and I'm not going to need to lift it up a whole lot, so I'm not really worried about it lifting up. I'm keeping my clay items in here. So some of you have seen my video for my clay buttons. So in here I have some of my little cutouts for my buttons, and then some of my clay. There's clay there. I keep clay in this bag. It's supposed to be, it's not supposed to harden, but I keep it in the plastic bag just so it doesn't harden up as fast. So I kind of like the way everything turned out, and I think I'll be able to use these little baskets. I will show you the difference in the sizes of these pegs. Okay, so you can see this one here is a 1/4 inch, and see how small this one is here. So this one here is made for a much smaller hole. So I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to get some hooks that look like this, but they're this size so that they will actually fit into these holes a little bit better. And I'm going to get the round ones so these aren't sticking out so much. And then I think it'll be just fine.